everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. It's a place for photographers to connect, inspire, and create. If you'd like to join us live, you can find the schedule on my website at lindanickell.com. Tonight's guest is Texas-based wildlife and nature photographer Ruth Hoyt. Ruth is a frequent guest speaker at birding and wildlife festivals and a hands-on and in-the-field workshop instructor. Ruth's photographs have been exhibited in the Smithsonian, and many have been published in well-respected books and magazines. Ruth is well known as a wildlife photography judge and contest organizer. If you want to connect with her, you can through Instagram. You can find her at Ruth Hoyt Photo or through her website at ruthhoyt.com. In tonight's presentation, do you have the winning photo? Ruth will share some tips and strategies for entering and winning photo contests. She'll talk about mistakes people make when choosing photographs to enter, and will provide insight from the judges' perspectives on narrowing down the choices from many to one. Welcome back to the Happiness Hour, Ruth.
Thanks, Linda. It's so good to be here. And I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen.
Wait a minute. Let's just talk for just a second. Where are you tonight? Give people, like I said, Ruth is always on the road. She's always going somewhere. And about, I don't know, 6 months ago, she let me tag her. I mean, she's lets me, what's what I'm looking for, not tagged you. I can find her on my phone at any given time. So when her vehicle is like traipsing through it, I'm like, what the hell is she doing in Las Cruces? So she's you're at a conference right now, right?
I'm on the board of directors for the Outdoor Writers Association of America. And every year we have a conference, usually in August, September, October sometime. And during the winter, previous to the conference, we as a board have a winter board meeting in person. Some people don't make it and they conference in by Zoom, but the rest of us come and we see where we're going to be going for our next conference. So that's why I'm here. We had board of directors meetings and we're finished with that. So we're just having fun now. I'm leaving tomorrow to drive back to Texas for appointments and stuff.
Well, thank you for staying there long enough to use their Wi-Fi so that we wouldn't have to I wouldn't be panicked yeah, with you driving across Texas. So, all right, with that, I'll let you get started.
So my topic tonight is, do you have the winning photo? And you can see that it's for the Happiness Hour especially, and it's me narrating and talking about pictures. And I've got my little QR code if you're interested in learning more about what I do. So some of you may not have remembered, but today is Valentine's Day, and I was up hiking in the mountains and found this pink purple cactus in the form of a heart. And I said, oh, it's so perfect for timing because it's Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day from Las Cruces, New Mexico. And love is in the air. We have cactus in the shapes of hearts just by chance and I guess by nature. And so I put a couple of those in today. This is from the ranch, the Laguna Seca Ranch, where I do a lot of guiding and workshops and instruction. So this is me, and that is a wild Audubon's Oriole, in case you haven't seen one before. And I was on a ranch, and there are no orange trees on the ranch, but Orioles love oranges, and this one landed on my hand, and I just have used that for my PR photo. So what does it take to win a photo contest? Luck? Technical ability? The best camera? exotic locations? Or are you in with the judge? I'm going to say no, it's not like that. So this is my rattlesnake and a knoll photo, which I took in 2000 in a photo contest. It was a major contest and it lost. It got nothing. This was a film photo contest back in 2000, and there was no way to alter this photo really. So this is what I took, and it did not win. So the same thing happened to my friend David Welling. He was in that contest 2 years later and took this photo, and it didn't win anything either. It's a rattlesnake grabbing a green jay by the neck. But both photos won major contests later. One of my wins with that photo was from Nature's Best Photo Contest. And well, it's won in other places. I only entered it a couple times, and both times it won after it lost. And then so did this one, taken by John Pickles. We were a team in the photo contest. It's called Wildlife in Focus contest now, but back then it was the Coastal Bend Wildlife Photo Contest. And we entered as a team. We ended up with first grand prize. And when he left to go to Alaska, it was before the end of the photo contest. So he left me with all of his images and some that he selected that he really liked and wanted to be sure that we entered if I thought it would do well. And I almost did not enter this photo. I almost did not. I don't know if he's listening to this. He will listen to the replay, I'm sure. But I almost did not enter this photo contest. We were together photographing, and a friend of ours was calling coyotes for us. And this coyote came in, and John was to my right, and the coyote was slightly to his right. And so I couldn't get an angle on it because I had number one, I had a shorter lens. I had a 500 millimeter lens. He had a 600 millimeter lens. My lens would have been the right photo. My lens would have been the right lens for this photo because, as you can see, this is the full picture. The tail is almost out of the picture and the feet are out of the picture in the grass. So those were two things that I would have definitely not put in the photo contest if it were not mine. But I happened to know that this was John's favorite picture from the whole 6 months that we were there. So I was in a quandary, a dilemma. What do I know? What do I do? I know it's his favorite photo. Do I enter it or do I not? And I decided that it was best to go ahead and put his favorite photo in the contest, even though had it been mine, I probably would not have. I mean, the image is compelling, as you can see. And as it turned out, it won first place in the coyotes class. It won first place in the mammals division. And then it went on to win best of contest. So in the end, it was a good decision to enter that photo in the contest. It doesn't always work that way, though. So I don't know if you want to take a screenshot or take a picture of it with your phone, or maybe, well, you'll watch the replay. Then you can pause it as long as you want. But I've got two screens here that I'm going to show you, and then I'm not going to show them again. So you'll have to either get a screenshot or look at them in the replay. So I'll just go through them right now, but then we're going to look at pictures and talk about them. There are many factors that come into play in a photo contest. Yes, there is a little bit of good luck in it because you never know what's going to happen behind the scenes, and you just never know. Having a technical ability to take pictures, to take great pictures is important. Having a good mentor, and I don't mean your mom or your dad or your kids or your friends. You need to have a good mentor, and having a good plan and strategy. And a lot goes into that. And I do coach people. I'm not going to run a self-promotion here, but having a good plan and strategy is very important when you're in a photo contest. And then entering the right photo contests. Continuing on, I'm going to share a few photography tips and talk about choosing the right photos for a contest, some processing tips, some preparation tips, and well wishes. Good luck to everybody. I hope you are interested in participating in a photo contest. You can learn a lot. Some people use photo contests as a reason or as a way to improve their photography because they get feedback. If they don't win, they want to know why. Some contests will tell you why, most of them will not. Moving on, let's look at some photos while I talk about them. I'm going to show you a long series of northern cardinal photos. They're on the ranch. I photograph them every time I go there, and I continue because you never know when you're going to get a really nice shot that would be contest worthy. And by the way, I don't really enter contests anymore. I'm more prone to be running them, organizing them, and finding judges for photo contests. So I really don't enter contests anymore. So you don't have to worry about me. So I've got a series of cardinals. This is the same cactus. And as the light changed in the evening, it's an afternoon photo shoot. I got several different photos, and choosing the right photo is important. Some people, if you can enter multiple contests, they'll put similar pictures of the same scene, and I don't recommend that. That's not a good strategy. By the way, this cardinal is processed two different ways. This first one, the light is different. The cactus is darker and the background is a little bit different colored than this one. Here, the color is much warmer and the cactus is lighter. Just making a note. We can talk about that later in the questions. Here's a female cardinal that came in. She had just touched down her first foot and was about to touch down with the second foot. Here's a female cardinal eating the cactus tunas. Those are very tasty. I've had them myself. People love to eat them, but the birds, everything eats them. So when you come to the ranch and the cactus tunas are ripe, you'll often see pictures. Let me back up. When you come to the ranch, when the cactus tunas are ripe, you'll often see all kinds of wildlife with purple on their faces. It's like a kid with a purple popsicle. It gets all over them and they're quite comical. Here's just a cardinal drinking with a reflection. Note the tail is in the reflection, but not in the picture. Another cardinal at the water hole with a drop of water from when he's lifting his head. Here's a cardinal cousin, the male Pyrrhoxia. A little story on this picture, because I like to tell stories. If you look at the tasajillo, it's a form of cactus, and on the left side branch, you can see all those little white spots where the berries were, and same thing on the right, you'll see a couple of those. This Pyrrhoxia, every time he came in to this cactus that I put up, he would take a berry and face away from me, and he was eating he had picked the last one. And I thought, okay, well, that was my last chance. And he turned around, and for me, it was like he was saying, thanks for all the berries. And then he took off. There's another Pyrrhoxia. This is the female. I caught her in, it looks like a musical conductor conducting music. Notice the grass that's going in front of her. Of course, you can't miss that. Moving on, these two hummingbird pictures are really just one picture, one after the other. So this was the way I processed it one way, and there's the way I processed it the other. I don't know if you can see the difference on a Zoom call. Linda's nodding yes, so that's good. So this one is more of a golden look to it, and this one is a little bit more daylight balanced. This picture is printed 5 feet tall and 9 feet wide and hangs in the visitor center in Weslaco, Texas. And this is the one that they used. So when you're photographing for a photo contest, you'll maybe go and set up somewhere and work on pictures. And you're going to, unless you change your perches or change your props or do something to make them different, they're all going to look the same, even though they might be different birds. So here we've got a black-crested titmouse on the cactus. Oh, there's the orange crown warbler on that same cactus. And oh, this is the long-billed thrasher. And on this picture, I have two pictures of this bird as it's moving around. So when it landed, it was catching its balance, and it was on one foot on the cactus tuna and stepping across, tiptoeing across the tuna. So this is the picture that I like. The next picture, he half shut his eye and he had his beak open. I don't remember why the beak was open, if he had already been eating the cactus or not. But when you're picking your pictures, you want to capture the peak of action or the peak of interest. So now we're moving on to raptors. And I have lots and lots of raptor pictures. And when you're going to choose what photos you're going to enter in the contest, you need to make sure that they're all different and pick the best ones. So this is a pair of black vultures perched together and keeping their balance. And we've got juvenile and adult crested caracaras here. And I'm not going to just keep saying this. These are all crested caracaras for the next series. And I've got them doing different things. This day it rained, so they had sort of punk rock hairdos. They were standing and the wind was blowing and there was a little bit of rain, so they were damp. There's one doing the territorial head toss. It makes a noise they call what do they call that? Rattling. It was making the rattling sound, and when they do that, they're claiming something. It may have been the perch or the food or the field or the mate, but it's a territorial kind of activity. It looks like bird yoga. Here you've got a pair of caracaras. For Valentine's Day, they're making the heart shape between their bodies. If you look from the beak to the chest. Now, they have been eating already, so they have what looks like little Easter eggs on their chest. That is actually the crop, and that's where the food goes until they digest it. So it hangs there. So when I'm photographing crested caracaras, I prefer to get them before this happens. This is just a portrait. Fighting. These are very scrappy birds. They get along well, except they do fight over food and mates, and they have family squabbles, and different families have squabbles as well. Getting some action here. I try and get everything in. I don't want to clip wings. I want to make sure there's eyes in the picture, everything's sharp where it should be. Here's just one landing. Watch the wing position and tail position and the feet as it's coming in for landing. Everything is splayed out. The next picture is too. Just a different angle, different light. Just a quick talk about birds. This is an adult. If you look, the orange on the beak and the legs is much darker. This one is a juvenile. So when you're picking photos for a photo contest, the pictures both have the same qualities about it. It's good light, good pose, wings flared, tail flared, talons out. But if I were choosing between this one and that one, I would probably choose this one that I'm showing because it's an adult bird and the color is a little bit more pronounced, dramatic. Here we've got a story. I've got a juvenile caracara coming in towards me, and the scissortail flycatcher took offense to that. I think she was upset that it must have flown too close to her nest. I have a whole series of this, but I just picked one to put in. Birds coming toward you are definitely better than birds flying away. So this is an exciting series for me because the white-tailed hawk is really hard to photograph. They don't come down much, and when they do, they come in so fast and they leave. You don't often get a choice of where they come. One of my points in talking about photo contests and composition and what makes a winning picture is I love the position of the bird, the bird's wings, the head, the tail, everything about it. It shows the white tail, but the background is really, really busy. It's a wall of trees that he's flying past, and he was going really fast. So I had to catch it just like it was. I wish the eye had had a catch light in it as well. But otherwise, this is a great photo. Here I've got him flying directly overhead. What I don't like about this one is the back wing, the wing farther away from us. You don't see the primary feathers. So that one's out. But it's a nice portrait. You do see that it's a white-tailed hawk. Here's another one. This one's better. The wing position is nice. You don't see the tail, and it's a white-tailed hawk. There's another one. This one has the cloud and the sky in the background, so that's a little bit better. I think this is my picture just because you see the whitetail, you see the wings flared, you see the catchlight in the eye. He's got some trees in the background, but they're really not, I'm going to say they're not really intruding on him. He is in front of them, but it's very subtle. So get ready for the next part. If you don't know me, I love green jays, and green jays are common and fun to photograph. They're always on the ranch. They always come in. They're very smart. They're clever. They play tricks on the other birds. They're just so fun to photograph. So this pair of photos is the green jay landed on the perch that I had set up, and he looked away. He came in, from the same direction as I was facing. So he came in with his back landing with his back to me. He did turn his head. And what I like about this picture is his beak is open. You see the blue on top of his head, which is really pronounced. And you see the full length of the bird and the colorful tail. The next picture, he turned around and looked at me. When I take a poll of which picture that people like better, it's split 50-50. Some people like this one better because the blue on the head shows better, and you see the beak open and you see the full body. But some people like this one because he's turned around and looking at me. You have to decide which way you like it. I have lots of green jay pictures, and I put up various perches for them to land on, and they're very curious. So they always, well, I shouldn't say always, nearly always they land on my perch just to investigate. There's one looking at something down below. This one, the tail is out of focus and it's soft. This one, I like the pose. I love downward facing birds because it's a different pose, but I don't like the tail in this one, and I don't like the catchlight is not prominent. Here you've got two green jays interacting, and they're not overlapping in the picture. Sometimes when you let your subjects overlap, it's a little bit confusing for people when they look at it. So this one's really good as far as that goes. The light is good, and you can see that the one on the right is being more aggressive and has his crest raised, and the left one is taking offense, but not departing. Eventually, the one on the right did get closer, and the one on the left finally succumbed and flew away. I love doing captures of birds in flight. This one, I call it the Kung Fu Green Jay because it looks like the position that he's in. The one thing that I don't like about this, you can't see where he's landing or where he's going. I just love the pose, though. There's one that's landing, and you can see that they're very they're agile, they're athletes of the sky, and they just make for good pictures because they're very colorful. There's one landing on a cactus. This is a horse crippler cactus, and they're very careful when they land. You can see his face, his eyes are very focused on where he's landing. He doesn't want to look up while he's doing that because that would really hurt. There's one drinking, and here's an exception of not having the whole bird in focus. Generally, I do not take pictures of birds that are facing full to the camera unless there's something really interesting about it. And what I like about this is the pose. He's got his head up, his tail up, he's at the water. You know he's at a drinking spot, and everything about him is all about that drink. Here's one bathing, and I've got two for a series, two pictures, and just notice the eye, the beak, the wings, and the tail. So in this one, the eyes, the beak, and the wings are in sharp focus. Well, the close wing is in sharp focus, and the tail and far wing are out. But it's an action shot, and he is throwing water every way. Green jays don't bathe often, and when they do, they're very secretive about it. And so I've captured this bird in a sort of vulnerable position. Here's the next frame. That's completely different. The mood is different. I think when you look at this one, it's a little bit more confusing. This one, you see the shape. If you take your finger and point like do an outline of the J, and you start at the tip of the beak and go to the tip of the tail. He makes a J. So he's got or a check mark. There's a curve to this picture. When you look at this one, you don't know which way to go. So this one I think is not as good as the other, but other people feel differently. I've polled people on that. So everybody has a different opinion, and that's, another point about judging. It's very subjective. This photo was selected for a calendar because it was one of the winners in a photo contest, but it's not my favorite because for me, it feels like it's set up. I don't like set up photos. And what I did was I had brought that cactus with me to the ranch and placed it there. And the green jay was curious, I guess, because it was something different. And he landed near it and then looked back at me. There's one tiptoeing on a perch that was not designed for a green jay. And sometimes doing that makes for a really nice picture. He is standing on the top branch. If you look at the base of the branch, he's standing on the back branch, and it was actually higher than the closer branch, but because of the weight of the bird, it put that down. But I just think this is a funny picture. It's maybe an awkward moment for a green jay, but I think it's funny. Here you've got feeding. If you can get any kind of natural behavior that goes on between two subjects, that adds interest. The background is clean. The birds are overlapping slightly, but it's part of what they're doing. He's feeding her. Here's one grabbing some, I guess, he's going for the cactus tuna. And I used a slow shutter speed for this. And believe it or not, this was only like a 60th of a second. And it just was, he hovered. And so his wings are going, but he was just grabbing onto the cactus tuna. So that's one of my favorite pictures. Some people don't like that because the wings aren't sharp. They're moving, and it's because of the slow shutter speed. For me, it's action. And if you look at the whole bird and the cactus, everything is still except for the wings. Here's another one. This is more in focus. The far wing is less in focus because I'm using a fast shutter speed and a shallow depth of field. This is the highest number of green jays I've had in one picture. And I wish that the bottom two birds were facing toward the camera a little bit more, then it would be more fun. So I don't know, the more the merrier. It doesn't necessarily make it a better picture. Here I've got 5 green jays, but you can only see 3 of them. I could crop that, I suppose, but that's not how I wanted the picture to look. Here's 4 green jays on a perch. And the one on the far right is not, he's looking forward, so you don't see his eye as well as you see on the other ones. So I wouldn't put any of these in a photo contest. It's just lots of birds. This one was really special. I've never gotten a green jay like this before or since then, because he's really mad and he's super angry. He sees another bird that hasn't been on the ranch before. It was a summer tanager. So the green bird saw the red bird, and he was like the Green Hulk. He just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I have a whole series of this, but this is when he was all maxed out. And he held that for just like a second or so. And then he had to exhale. So he lost it all, but it's just funny. So I really like this picture. I would enter this in a photo contest because it's not just a bird on a stick like it was before he did that, but it became interesting. Here's another one that I find real interesting because it's, like I said before, it's not very often that you ever see a green jay bathing. And what they do is they look around, make sure nobody's looking. They do a dip and dunk really quick, and then they fly away to go dry off and preen in the brush so you don't see them. So I happened to catch him right when he came up. Here's some photos with other talking points. I sort of separated them because all of those were by species and talking about what I would do in a photo contest for them. So some pictures, I like to find action, and, the quail walking through the brush or through the grass is not so interesting. Yes, they're beautiful and they make nice portraits, but again, like I said, I like action. So I've got a really nice sharp picture of the northern bobwhite, his crest is up, his eyes bright, it has the catchlight from the sun, and he's got a wing up. And thankfully the wing that's closer to the camera was up higher than the other wing, and you don't see the other one so much. Here's a quail, a northern bobwhite, and he's peering towards the camera, the photo blind. And I just like the soft background behind him. The flowers were blooming everywhere, and he just happened to walk through there. This is a picture I would consider entering in a photo contest. I've photographed it vertically, horizontally, cropped, not cropped. And I think this is the best way for me, for my preferences, because if it were in a photo contest, you've got the fawn coming into the water. You can tell he's a little bit nervous. It was the first time he was coming into the water, and his mother is giving him a reassuring lick and grooming. And you can see the cactus prickles that are on her side and flank. In South Texas, there's a lot of cactus, and sometimes when they run or they're doing something, they go through the cactus and they pick up the prickles. But I like this because it's got a story to it, and there's a nice reflection. This is a photo that won a photo contest years ago. I think this was film. I believe it was 2000. Yes, it was. It was a 2000 photo contest, and it was a film picture. So when you do digital work, you can always you can always look at your photos right away. So I had no idea that I had captured this just like I did. And it's a different view of Pitaya cactus. They're low and close to the ground. I was lying on the ground with my camera aimed at the cactus, and I was using a macro lens, and I was just watching for the bees as they would come flying through. And this one I captured just right. You saw the bird that was eating the orange from my hand earlier at the beginning. And what I'd like to say about that is I gave that bird oranges every time I went to the ranch. So there became a trust factor. And I wanted him to land on this aloe that was blooming, and he wouldn't land on the aloe. He just wouldn't do it. And so what I did was I put a supporting perch between the two blossoms, and he did land on that. So what I like to say about that is I gave him oranges and he gave me this picture. Now, I wasn't finished with that. I left it up after he gave me that photo. And what I had next was the black-crested titmouse. I cropped it differently, and I could have left more, but I think it's more, I don't know, I guess more of a portrait. And so I purposely took the photo like this, where the focus is on the bird, but with the surrounding vegetation. It supports it. This I would never enter in a photo contest, just because I don't do a whole lot of processing on my images. I like for you to see what I saw through my camera, but just on the results. And what was happening was this owl, a great horned owl, flew in. I was doing a lesson with somebody, and it was her first lesson, and we were still setting up. I had helped her set up her tripod and her camera, and my camera was behind me on the floor. And she says, "Oh my gosh, look at that bird." And I turned around and said, "Oh my gosh, a great horned owl." It's never come into the perch like that before. And she says, "What do I do?" And I said, "Shoot. We'll answer questions as you go." I don't know how long he'll stay, and he did not stay long. But the way the sun was shining, you can see that the foot is overexposed. And yes, I could fix that in processing, but I really am I'm going to say I'm still a purist. I know with AI coming along, artificial intelligence, a lot of things have changed in photography. And, in a lot of these contests, they say no AI allowed. How are you going to tell unless you request the raw photos? So anyway, I probably would not enter this in a photo contest. It's just, I'm going to say a bird on a stick. It's a beautiful portrait, but I would say that I would have to do some manipulating and some masking or something to make this better. This photo is one of my favorite woodpecker pictures. It's a golden fronted woodpecker, and I had set this Yopon branch out, and it came right in and grabbed the berry and it started eating all the berries. So this was before all the berries were gone. And just, it was an evening photo shoot, or late afternoon into the evening. The sun was getting low in the sky. The catch light is there. The composition is there. In a perfect world, I would not want that branch under its tail like that, but it's not a perfect world, and it's totally candid. The bird did exactly what it did, and the picture is what it is. The other leaf, the other thing that I don't particularly like is that leaf is almost touching his beak. I wish that leaf weren't there, but that's me being nitpicky. And when I'm entering contests, I take all of these little nitpicks into consideration. I was with David Welling, or actually he was with me. He was on the ranch with me when this happened. David Welling is the photographer who had that picture of the rattlesnake catching the green jay. And we both have this picture. It's been published many times, more by him than me. I don't tend to publish a lot. I just take lots of pictures and use them for teaching and workshops and sometimes printing. So sometimes picking the right photo, sometimes you guess wrong and sometimes you get lucky. And on this one, I got lucky. There was a humor category in the Wildlife in Focus contest. And I put that in humor because this greater roadrunner was contorting himself into a pretzel. And what he was doing was grooming. And so he was reaching over his back to get the oil from his little gland there at the top, at the base of his tail. And so I entered it in the humor class. It got first place and it won me some money. But that's really not my favorite Roadrunner picture. I have lots of Roadrunner pictures, but I only put these two in because I was making the point of which one to enter. I would enter this one over the other picture any day. Sometimes we get emotionally attached to the photos that we take. And this was a real special photo for me, although I would never enter it in a photo contest. Sometimes we become attached to the event rather than the actual resulting photograph. And this one, I was with a friend, I was helping her with photography, and I just, I was doing instructional, and so I was talking about it, and it just doesn't do a whole lot for maybe a photo contest judge, but it's a picture I'm fond of because I'm remembering the event of helping my friend with her photography more than getting great photos. This is another one of those. I was photographing from a kayak. I don't think I was with you, Elaine, for this one, but I was out photographing on my kayak and got this. And so I'm attached to the event more so than the photograph that results from it. If you look at the water and then the background, there's a real hard split almost in the middle of the picture. And I could crop the photo down and not have so much green and make the bird more prominent. And I could crop from the right side so that splash of water was almost to the right edge, and that would give him more of a place to look into as he's running. But I wanted to show what the real picture looked like as it came out of the camera. This one, I was lying in the sand. I really got wet and sandy and muddy that night. The light was almost gone. Sunset was happening. And I wish I could have had more reflection for this. And I just didn't. I was in the sand and the water edge was right there. So I couldn't have gotten this without getting up and moving, and that would have spooked the bird. So sometimes you get these photos, and I would maybe not enter it in a photo contest, but I remember the moment of catching that bird with the food that he's capturing. Same thing here. This I think it's a sandpiper, and it's picking up things out of the water. And for a photo contest, I wouldn't enter it because, number one, it's not facing a little bit toward the camera. It's facing a little bit away from the camera. So it's actually from the behind picture, literally. You can see by looking at his two legs that one is farther back and he's turned away from the camera. His beak is also facing away from the camera. So that just just doesn't work for a photo contest. But I did like it. I thought it was sort of interesting that the ripples were making multiple beaks in the water. When you do reflections, if you can, try to just get one eye and one beak. If you're doing birds, whatever the subject is, the ripples will make or break the photo. So I suggest shooting in the burst mode where you're taking, I don't know, some of these cameras do 120 frames a second now. So if you shoot in the burst mode and if you're working toward getting a picture for a photo contest, I definitely shoot in the burst mode. I always have my camera in burst mode, so I take as many frames per second as possible. But I've learned to train my finger to just be I'm going to call it a feather touch on the shutter. So if it's a good picture, I leave the shutter down a little bit longer. If it's not as exciting, then I just do a little burst and then, maybe have 5 or 6 pictures to look at. Each one will be different. And that's part of the, what do you want to call it? The strategy for finding the best photos. I like this photo because it looks like he's laughing. It's a roseate spoonbill. The sun is super low in the sky. We've almost lost our light, and he's walking along and he sees, I don't know if he was going to eat that snail or not, but there's a big snail in the water on the edge, and he was walking toward it. And I just like the pose. Cuteness is a big factor in photo contests. If you're doing wildlife, I'm going to just say cuteness counts. And this won first place in a photo contest. This was in film, and it was a baby black-necked stilt. And it was maybe a day old, and Mama was nearby watching, and I was lying on the edge of the water taking pictures. And I just liked the way his wing positions, the wings are positioned, because he was walking in the water, the shallow water, and it was sort of muddy, and his leg got stuck, and he was trying to get his left leg out of the water, and he put his wings up to catch his balance. So that was just a lucky shot. This was back in the days of film. My camera did, I think, I don't know, 8 frames per second or 5 frames per second. I don't remember. It was film. You could run through your roll of 36 exposures pretty fast, but nothing like today. So talking about pictures that we're attached to, this is a picture that I probably wouldn't enter in a photo contest. It's not the Milky Way. It's not exceptional. There's some clouds in the sky that sort of cover up some of the stars. It was a long time ago that I did this photo, and I was working on night sky photography. So I don't feel like it's my best work, and I do much better now. The technology is better. I'm better. And I just put this in just to share that with you, because it's something that I'm attached to, because it was in my learning process of doing night sky photography. Colorful birds are lots of fun to photograph, and you want to have a story if possible. And so this male painted bunting on the cactus, not cactus, sorry. This male painted bunting on the cattail is interesting, but he's really not doing anything. He landed on the cattail and then flew away. So not really very interesting. Same thing for the grosbeak. It's a blue grosbeak. It's a male in breeding plumage. Very pretty portrait. As far as a photo contest, I probably wouldn't enter it. The tail is out of focus. His beak, I don't know if it's dirty or scratched and scuffed up, but it doesn't add to the picture. And the perch that he's landed on, his back foot, the foot farther away from us, is partially covered, and the foot that's closer to us is on part of the stick that's behind the one sticking up. So had he landed on the front top piece of the stick, where he'd be elevated and up away from the stick, it might have been better. And his tail might have been in better focus, because he would be closer to the camera and probably more parallel to it. There's a close-up portrait. The birds get really close on the ranch, so it's a lot of fun to do these portraits when they're that close. As I said before, I love downward facing birds because it adds an angle to the photograph that you might not have. And winding up with a few more pictures. This was when I got my first digital camera about, I guess it's been 5 or 6 years ago now. Anyway, I was playing with tracking, and I had it on bird tracking. And what was interesting was the eye tracking for the birds. When I tried to do these butterflies, the eye tracking was bouncing around from one spot to another on the butterflies. So that was a learning experience. This is a picture that I took. I entered it in a photo contest and it didn't win anything. And I know it's not the greatest picture of a badger, but it was a badger baby looking out of the brush at me. And I think it's just one of those pictures that I was attached to. He made eye contact and I was looking at him with my macro lens. Patterns. You can sometimes win photo contests by using patterns. This is the millipede. If you touch the millipede, it curls up like this and makes a really neat spiral pattern. And had to have great depth of field, but had to be careful because they curl up really fast, but then they start unwinding. And so what I did was make sure that the center part was in focus. He's got little they're not really antennas. They're more like little feet at the front of by the face. And I made sure that that was in focus and the center was in focus. And you can see that other places are not as much in focus. I love photographing bobcats. So I have some bobcats in here. This was a bobcat kitten that came to the photo blind at the ranch, and it was in August. So if anybody wants to find bobcats, that's the best time to find them because in the afternoon they get really hot and thirsty and they come to the pond to drink. I've only got a few bobcat pictures, but that's always when it happens, July and August, when it's really hot. This is another day, another cat, and it came across the whole field up to the photo blind to get a drink. This is that first one that I showed you just a minute ago. I had to switch lenses because I had my long lens for birds on. I was not expecting a bobcat. And so I got that initial face shot with my 500 lens and had to put it in two pieces because I couldn't fit the whole cat face in the viewfinder. But once I got a few of those pictures, then I quietly switched to my 70 to 200 millimeter lens and was able to get the cat as it was approaching the water. There's a little pocket gopher. They love flowers. And when they dig, well, they live underground all the time, but occasionally they come up when it rains. They don't come out, but what they do is they're like little bulldozers, and they excavate their tunnels so that the tunnels are clear again. And sometimes they pop up right where there's some flowers, and that's what happened here. I do have a video of this, not with me tonight, but I have a video of this because he took the flower down with him into the hole. There's no reflection on this. This is just a funny picture that I liked when I took it because catching an armadillo, he came to the water, drank, and then he rolled around a little bit, and then he left, and then he came back. So I got him with the mud on him. Okay, we've got a few javelina pictures, just a few. I like this just because it's different. You can see the eye, but the focus is more on his snout and his posture. What he's doing is air scenting. He's smelling something that he had never smelled before. And that's what he's doing. He's sniffing the air. I've never seen them do that. So I just like the pose. Is it a contest winning picture? Probably not. This one might be the mama with her baby. Here's another one, a mama with her baby. I love reflections. Although this bird is facing away from the camera, I still like the action and the reflection. Would I enter it in a contest? I don't know. I've taken a lot better pictures than that since I took that one. This was not early on in my bird photography, but it was just at a time where I wasn't expecting to get a bird with the reflection. Sometimes it's nice to have a natural habitat. For photo contests, probably not quite this natural. The birds are coming in, there's grass in the water. And if you look at the bird behind, right in front of its beak, below it is a spectral highlight. It was some water on the grass. This is in Costa Rica, and I only included one picture from Costa Rica just because this was a picture that I captured in flight, and we can talk during the question and answer period. Should I leave the bananas in the picture or not? That's a topic that we can talk about. There's another armadillo at sunset with a better reflection than the other one. Birds interacting on the nest. The bobwhite with its chicks. Raccoon at night, more reflections. This was a setup with a laser beam that he crossed to get the picture, for me to get the picture. And this is a multiple exposure picture, and there's no tricks to it. It was me just guessing to make this spiral. It was a lunar eclipse, and I took a series, and when I took the last photo, my camera died, and I did not know until I got home that I got that picture. So that's another one. Probably wouldn't enter it in a photo contest, or if I did, I wouldn't expect to win. It's not perfect, but I really liked the moment because I was cold and my battery died on my camera right when I was taking that. And that's all I have for that. And if there's any questions.
I'm going to give people a minute to put. I don't see any questions yet. So okay, bananas or no bananas. I would say that it needs to. I'd like to see more bananas. I mean, there was just such a sliver. It was almost distracting. It's kind of like, did you mind your borders? And no, you did not. But it's also another bird in flight. Where's it going? What's it doing? There's no story. It's just you were able to capture it. So okay. So how to get into contests? So I think the question is, how can she find contests? You mentioned Wildlife in Focus. And maybe you should tell people what that contest is, because if you're not from Texas and not from South Texas, you may not know what that is.
All right. So Wildlife in Focus used to be called the Coastal Bend Wildlife Photo Contest. And if you go to wildlifeinfocus.org, that is where you can find that contest. It's run every other year. It's a major Ironman kind of contest. The contest runs about 5.5 months long. You are supposed to capture pictures on one property, and you team as a photographer with a landowner. If you don't know a landowner down in the Corpus Christi area, well, actually, it's all South Texas now. And so you contact the contest and you ask them to help you pair with a landowner. So everything you enter on that contest for your portfolio is taken on one property. And so that's a contest that's run every other year, and it's coming up in 2025. So this is the year that they're recruiting for the next photo contest. So wildlifeinfocus.org. My favorite photo contest is Nature's Best magazine. They have a wonderful photo contest. It's open right now for entries. And Steve Freely is a longtime friend and colleague. Steve Freely is the co-founder of Nature's Best magazine. And I remember when I met him 30 plus years ago, I guess, and he brought in this wonderful magazine that had no advertisements in it. And it's still that way. How many magazines can you find like that? So I would say that's probably my favorite photo contest. And nature photographer, let's see. Well, Linda, you have a document. I don't know if people can see that, or should we just no? Okay.
Yeah, that was a document I created because we were doing a little research project.
Right.
If you're interested in that, you can message me and I'm happy to share the list with you. But yeah, we're not going to show that on the screen.
Okay.
So the question for Lorena, her question is, how do you get into contests? So first of all, Lorena, you got to find one that you're interested in. A lot of contests will have an entry fee, right? Some of there are some that are free. Those are a little bit harder to find. I think it depends on the contest and the prize. A lot of times there's prize money involved. So if there's prize money involved, you're likely going to have an entry fee. But a Google search will help you find contests. There's everything from your local camera clubs to these international contests. Um, I don't
I'm
know
gonna,
if that.
yeah, I'd like to say something about that. I mean, photo contests, you really, really need to look at the rules and consider what they entail and what you give up by entering, because some of them are just ploys for them to get pictures that they can do with whatever they want. You really, really need to read the rules, the submission guidelines, and I have a couple of notes on that, so I want to make sure I don't forget anything. So, as for finding the right photo contest, you want to make sure that you don't give up your copyright rights, and you want to make sure that you know exactly what they're going to do with your photos. If they're just going to use it for promoting future contests, I would say that's okay. But some of them want to create things that they turn around and sell, and they don't offer you any royalties or any part of what they make from your photo contest. So be really careful when you're entering photo contests. Um, I I could talk about choosing the right photos. And so I've got some talking points that I'm looking at my list off to the side here. So you want to enter only your best work. You want to look for images that have impact. You want to maintain simple compositions and clarity of ideas for a clean look. You want to leave room for the subject to breathe. You want to check your backgrounds. I talked a little bit about that in the slideshow. And you want to seek original, unique subjects to make your photographs stand out from the rest of the pack. I mean, I use mostly birds because that's what I do. I have all kinds of wildlife, as you saw some of the mammals that I did and other things. But you want your pictures to stand out from the rest of the pack. That's really important because like, let's just use birds, for example. There's going to be a lot of birds on stick kind of pictures, and portraits of birds showing everything about them is wonderful. But in a photo contest, unless they have a portrait category, you're better off looking for something that has the bird or birds doing something, whether it's courting or feeding or flying, something besides just a still subject. I've heard comments, from running photo contests. I hear it all from the judges asking, why do they enter this? From the judges to the people asking, why didn't my photo win? That is the most common question that I hear from everybody. Why didn't my photo win? And then you go to look at what they turned in, and it's just, I'm not going to say it's ho-hum, but it's just not contest worthy. And even if you're a beginner and there's a beginner's category, you really need to have something about your photos that stand out from the rest. And then you want, okay, some photo contests have a theme. And if there's a theme, you want to make sure that your picture follows the theme. I have judged many contests, and if there's a theme, I'm looking for what the theme says, whether it's colorful or camouflage or action. I want to see the pictures that represent that word or that theme that they've got. And then you want to follow the submission instructions precisely and proof your work and enter well before the deadline. I can't tell you how many people enter on the last hour of the last day of the photo contest. And when the website crashes because so many people are doing it, they wonder why they didn't get in. And you also want to follow the instructions precisely. In some photo contests, they'll say it needs to be 2,000 pixels on the long side. It needs to be a JPEG. We need a TIFF. We need your RAW. Other contests are just open, and they don't really tell you what they want. And that's where you run into trouble when you're entering a photo contest, because I have been seeing many artificially intelligent photos taken and entered. One of the ones that I saw, I think last year, it wasn't even a photograph. It looked like a photo illustration. So you have to be really careful about that.
So
Are
now
there
I've got a lot of questions.
Yeah,
Yeah, are you ready?
yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so we're gonna go through these pretty quickly, if you could. Do you ever find yourself entering for the jurors what you think they will like?
That's an excellent question, and I love to answer that. The photo contest that I had run the past 6 months, I kept the judges secret from the participants because if they know that I'm a bird photographer and I'm judging a photo contest and it's all wildlife, I'm going to get birds out the wazoo, and I don't necessarily want to see bird pictures. I mean, sure I do, of course I do, but that doesn't mean you've got an in with the judge just because they do a certain thing. And I've heard other judges say the same thing. Don't follow and enter what I do because some judges are going to think that's not as good as what I would have done. So that might hurt your case rather than help it.
Um, okay, so can you talk a little bit about editing? How much is acceptable when entering a photo in a contest?
All right. So anybody who knows me know that I hate spending lots of time at the computer. I would rather try and perfect the picture in the camera when I'm taking it than quote fixing it in Photoshop. I'm not a big proponent of that. And that goes back to my training as a film photographer. We couldn't do anything like that before the digital photography came. And now that it's here and now that we have I I'm going to get left behind, I think, because so many people are into that. I do minimal processing. I don't oversaturate. I don't overcrop. I don't. I mean, the list goes on and on. I do when I bring my picture up in Lightroom, that's where I work mostly. I work with other things too, but let's just use Lightroom for an example. The first thing I do is I crop it the way I want it. And it's usually minimal because I was very specific when I was taking the picture of how I wanted it to look. I know with a 50 megapixel camera, you can crop the heck out of a photo, but what's the point? I mean, I would rather not. So the first thing I do is make a crop if I'm going to crop at all. And then I'm going to do some light adjustments, whether it's noise reduction or if it's the color balance, the daylight or evening light. I'll make I'm going to say slight adjustments. I generally don't do a whole lot to my photos, and I might do a little bit of sharpening, but I really don't overdo it. And so many pictures that you see nowadays are oversaturated and over sharpened. And I'm going to tell you, it might look good to you, but the judges, yeah, they stand out, but not necessarily in a good way. So just have a light touch.
Okay. Um, I like this question, Kurt. Do you ever run into issues with entry guidelines regarding the staging of your photos? He says, I know Audubon photo contests restrict entries to those that are natural and don't involve perches, lures, or feeders. So his question is, do you ever run into any issues with the guidelines?
Well, it just depends on the contest. And if you don't, if you go to the ranch and we're calling birds in, with perches and attracting them with food, that may not be the contest for you. It's 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 all perception, and I can understand because they want it to be pure ethics. And how do they police that? What I say is the more rules you write, the more you have to enforce. And if you can't prove what you're trying to ask people to do, it really puts you in an awkward position. And it also puts the judges in an awkward position. So personally, I don't enter photo contests much, if at all, anymore. But you have to choose your photo contests by what you use as your standard for photography.
Okay. How do you feel about denoise? Using denoise?
I do use denoise, but I don't do masks. I know in the photo contests that I've been running the past 6 months, people are always complaining, why can't we do masks and filters and burning and dodging? And oh, okay, this is not the contest for you. So when you enter a contest, find the one that allows that if that's how you want to do your photos. It's all in the perception of you and how you do your photography. And I know I'm old school and old fashioned, learned on film. So we just, we never did any of that stuff.
Okay. One last question. This is from Ben. He wants your thoughts on the condition of most contests that they can make unlimited use of photos you enter, even if they don't win. So he's always thought that it was unfair, and that's one of the reasons he hasn't entered a lot of contests. What do you think?
It is unfair. I wouldn't enter. That's simple as that. I just, it's your picture. You took the time to get that picture. And what are they doing? They're just taking your picture and using it for their own good. And you don't get any satisfaction or payment for it. Some people just want to get published and they think that's a great way to do it. Okay, but that's really not helping you improve your photography. It's just letting somebody use your work. And if you aspire to ever selling anything, what you're doing is making a bad case for other photographers who make their living selling photography. I know somebody who was really excited. She got her first cover and she told me all about it. And I said, well, that's great. That's wonderful. Congratulations. And I said, did they pay you well? And she said, oh, no, they don't pay. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is this magazine using her work and getting all the recognition. And sure, they put the inside cover photo by so-and-so, but whose benefit is that? The magazine.
Yeah. Okay. I think I covered all those questions in the chat. Ruth, thank you. I know that I always I call on you, I call on Valerie Hoffman. I pick on certain people and I make you come back because um, I know that you have a lot of information tucked up in that little head, and I want it all. And I want you to share what you know. And you're so gracious about doing it, and I so appreciate it. I even bought you dinner the last time I saw you at the Dairy Queen. So I'm such a great friend to you. I don't know why you keep taking my calls, but
I do.
I so
You're fun to be with. You're fun to photograph, fun to travel with. You're just a fun person. Even when you're not having the best day, you're still fun because we can laugh about it later.
It's true. Very true. All right. Next week, Kevin Hogue will be here. He's here in the room tonight, but join us because he's going to share his presentation, A Photographer's Perspectives on Aging, Maintaining the Joy. So until next time, go out and create something beautiful. And I hope that we will see you again soon.